Welcome to Trending Update USA, I'm Stefan, and today we're asking a bigger question than just tennis results. How does a 15-year-old shock the world, carry the weight of global expectations, and still rise into a true superstar? Because when we talk about Coco Gauff, we're not just talking about matches. We're talking about moments that changed how people see young athletes, pressure, and even fame itself. Let's start with what happened, briefly. At just 15 years old, Coco Gauff walked onto the grass courts of Wimbledon and defeated her idol, Venus Williams. That wasn't just an upset. That was a moment that instantly turned her from a promising junior into a global headline. Since then, she's gone on to win major titles, face the toughest players in the world like Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek, and evolve her game under constant public attention. But the real story isn't just what she won. It's how those matches, the craziest, most intense ones, shaped who she became. Because every crazy match in Gauff's career reveals something deeper. That Wimbledon match against Venus Williams, it looked magical on the surface. A fearless teenager playing freely, hitting winners, smiling under pressure. But what made it truly extraordinary wasn't just her tennis. It was her composure. Most 15-year-olds would be overwhelmed just walking onto that court. Gauff looked like she belonged. And that's the first key insight. Sometimes greatness shows up before experience does. But here's the twist. That early success can be both a blessing and a burden. When you explode onto the scene like that, expectations don't grow slowly, they skyrocket overnight. Suddenly, every match isn't just a match. It's a test of whether you're the next big thing, or just a one-time story. And for Gauff, the matches that followed proved that growth is never a straight line. There were losses. Tough ones. Matches where her serve broke down. Matches where emotions showed. Matches where the spotlight felt heavier than the racket. And those are just as important as the wins. Take her clashes with top players like Aryna Sabalenka. Power versus resilience. Those matches weren't always clean or predictable. They were chaotic, intense, and mentally draining. Gauff had to figure out how to stay calm when the game sped up, when the opponent hit harder, when the crowd expected her to respond instantly. That's where the crazy part really begins. Because crazy matches aren't just about long rallies or dramatic comebacks. They're about internal battles. There were matches where Gauff had to fight herself, her nerves, her expectations, her frustration. And in modern sports, that internal battle is often harder than the opponent across the net. Let's talk about pressure for a moment. Most athletes develop under the radar. They lose quietly, improve slowly, and build confidence over time. Gauff didn't get that luxury. From the moment she beat Venus Williams, every move she made was watched, analyzed, and debated. That kind of exposure changes everything. Every mistake becomes a headline. Every loss becomes a question. Is she ready? Is she overrated? What's wrong with her game? And imagine dealing with that as a teenager. This is where her matches become more than just sports events. They become case studies in mental resilience. One of the defining phases of her career came when she started facing players like Iga Swiatek, who dominated with consistency and control. Gauff struggled in some of those early encounters. And that's where many young athletes would begin to doubt themselves. But instead of collapsing under that pressure, she adapted. She improved her serve. She worked on her decision-making. She became more patient, more strategic. And slowly, those crazy matches started to shift in a different direction, from chaotic survival to controlled confidence. That's the evolution from talent to champion. Now let's zoom out for a second, because Gauff's journey also reflects something bigger about modern sports. Social media. When a 15-year-old athlete becomes famous today, it's not just press conferences and TV interviews. It's millions of people commenting, reacting, judging in real time. Every match Gauff plays isn't just watched, it's dissected online. And that creates a new layer of pressure that previous generations didn't face. Imagine losing a tough match and then opening your phone to thousands of opinions, some supportive, some critical, some completely unfair. That environment can shape how athletes see themselves. And yet, Gauff has managed to stay remarkably grounded. She speaks thoughtfully in interviews. She acknowledges her weaknesses without panic. She doesn't pretend to be perfect. That's rare. Because the expectation today isn't just to win, it's to win while being constantly visible, constantly accessible, constantly judged. And this brings us back to those craziest matches. Think about her deep runs in major tournaments, where every round brings a new challenge. The tension builds. The stakes rise. The margin for error disappears. In those moments, what we're really watching isn't just tennis skill, it's emotional control. There's a particular kind of intensity in matches where momentum keeps shifting. One set goes one way, the next goes the other. The crowd gets louder. The pressure builds. Those are the matches that define players. And for Gauff, they've become opportunities rather than obstacles. You can see it in how she handles big points now. There's less panic. More clarity. More belief. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It came from losing matches she was expected to win. From winning matches she was expected to lose. From learning that either result defines you completely. And that's a powerful lesson, not just for athletes, but for anyone. Now let's talk about identity. When you become famous young, people try to define you quickly. The next Serena. A future number one. A teenage sensation. But those labels can be limiting. Because they don't leave room for growth, for mistakes, for individuality. Gauff's journey shows what happens when a player starts to define herself instead. She's no longer just a 15-year-old who shocked Wimbledon. She's a competitor who understands her game, her mindset, and her place in the sport. And that shift is visible in her biggest matches. There's a calmness now. Not the carefree calm of a newcomer, but the earned calm of someone who has been through pressure and come out stronger. And that's why her matches continue to captivate people. Because they're not predictable. They're not scripted. They're real. Sometimes she dominates. Sometimes she struggles. But she keeps evolving. And that unpredictability, that human element, is what makes sports meaningful. Let's also consider the role of media. From the beginning, Gauff's story was framed as something extraordinary. And it is. But constant storytelling can also create unrealistic expectations. Every match becomes part of a narrative. Every performance is interpreted through a larger story. That can be motivating, but it can also be exhausting. Because athletes are not stories. They're people. And one of the most interesting aspects of Gauff's career is how she navigates that balance. She engages with the media, but she doesn't lose herself in it. She understands the attention, but she doesn't rely on it. That's a difficult balance to maintain, especially in today's environment. Now, if we go back to the idea of craziest matches, we can redefine what that really means. It's not just about drama or shock. It's about transformation. The match against Venus Williams showed the world her potential. The battles against top-ranked players showed her limitations. The later victories showed her growth. Each phase was necessary. Each match added something. And together, they tell a story that goes far beyond tennis. Because at its core, this is a story about growing up under pressure. About learning in public. About failing in front of millions and still moving forward. That's not easy. And that's why Gauff's journey resonates with so many people. Not because she wins every time, but because she keeps going. Now let's bring this to the present. As she continues competing at the highest level, the expectations haven't disappeared. If anything, they've increased. But now, she's better equipped to handle them. She's not just reacting anymore, she's leading. Leading her matches. Leading her mindset. Leading her career. And that's the difference between a rising star and a true superstar. So when we look back at those craziest matches, we shouldn't just see highlights. We should see lessons. Lessons about resilience. About patience. About self-belief. And about the reality of modern sports, where talent alone is not enough, you also need mental strength, emotional balance, and the ability to stay grounded in a world that constantly pulls you in different directions. In the end, Coco Gauff's story matters beyond tennis because it reflects something universal. How do you handle sudden success? How do you deal with pressure that comes too early? How do you grow while the world is watching? There are no simple answers. But through her matches, the wins, the losses, the chaos, the control, Gauff is showing that it's possible to figure it out step by step. And maybe that's what makes her journey truly special. Not the shock of a 15-year-old victory, but the ongoing process of becoming something greater. Thanks for watching Trending Update USA. I'm Stefan, and we'll see you in the next story. Audience questions. Do you think early fame helps or harms young athletes in the long run? Which Coco Gauff match do you think truly defined her career so far? Can athletes today ever truly escape social media pressure?